Welcome once again, and thanks for staying with us. We've been reporting this morning about the closure of Grayston Preparatory in Sandown, north of Johannesburg. And for the latest, we're crossing live to our colleague Chriselda Lewis. Chriselda, you're at the school right now. What have you heard?
Well, Desiree, what we can confirm at this hour is that indeed the school has been closed for the day. The Gauteng Department of Education has confirmed this, but what we do know is that this is not a decision that was taken by the department itself. The understanding that we have currently is that it may appear that one of the staff members, one of the teachers, may have come into contact with one of the group of 10 that had travelled to Italy. You'd recall that South Africa has now confirmed 3 cases, positive cases of the coronavirus, all linked, of course, to that group of 10 people that went to Italy and returned. You would recall that the first incident was confirmed in Hilton in KwaZulu-Natal, and then later one person being quarantined here in Johannesburg in Gauteng. So at this stage, that's the information that we have, but what we do know is that Health Department together with the Gauteng Education Department don't seem to understand why that measure has been taken. I would presume that both departments will be in conversation with the school about why they took that decision. I guess the school could perhaps argue at this stage that that might have been a precautionary measure on their part. You could see here towards this direction. We're going to ask SABC cameraman Kwazi Manzi just to zoom in a bit. Absolutely quiet at the school at the moment, no movement whatsoever. We haven't really come into contact with anybody here at the school because I can imagine that the decision to close the school may have been earlier communicated with the parents here to ensure that the children or the learners do not come to school. But I think we'll get much more clarity on that, Desiree, at an interministerial briefing that will be held in Pretoria this afternoon. We'll also pose some of those questions, and we're still waiting for a statement from the National Department of Health. You'd know very much that communication around COVID-19 has very much been centralized to the department, irrespective of this involving a school here in Johannesburg or in Gauteng. The Department of Health will be communicating about why that decision has been taken after it has been able to get all the necessary information from the school. So that's what we can confirm at this stage. The school indeed closed for the day. We're not sure at this stage when the school will reopen. We'll probably get those details from that media briefing a bit later on, but closed suspicion at this stage is because it may appear that one of the teachers may have come into contact with one of those 10 South Africans who'd recently travelled to Italy.
Chriselda, thank you so much for that confirmation, but a difficult time for South Africans as they try to figure out how to interact with all of this information. But you've been covering this story extensively, and your confirmation now that Grayston Prep is indeed closed, yet another indication of swift responses.
Well, absolutely, Desiree, swift responses. But I think there's one message that has been quite clear from the Department of Health is that there is no need to panic at this stage, because you would know that any cases, we're constantly, as the media, getting information from various sources about suspected cases in different parts of the country. But I think in order to ensure that we don't play part to that panic is to rather wait for confirmation from the Department of Health about cases that have gone through the process, through the lab, and have either tested negative or tested positive. So it rather at this stage is what we're relying on to ensure that the media doesn't also play a role in terms of creating that panic through South Africans. So whenever we bump into some kind of information, we would forward that to the Department of Health and rather get them through the National Institute for Communicable Diseases to confirm whether the information that we've received is credible or not. So at this stage, I'm sure we'll get a lot more from that press briefing in Pretoria much later on about some of the questions that we would rather pose to them and get some information from them on what the status is currently. Are we still standing on those 3 cases at the moment? What has been the outcome of the others that they were still investigating pertaining to that group of 10 that had travelled to Italy? Because you'd know, of course, that the cases that were confirmed also at the weekend pertain to coming into contact or being part of the group of people that had travelled to Italy. So much more information on that, Desiree, this afternoon, officially from that interministerial committee that will hold that press briefing. So we'll also get some information about what they've heard from Grayston itself, but officially confirmed. You can see the gates behind me. There's absolutely no activity here.
Thank you so much for that update, Chriselda, and quite correct coming from Chriselda there. Responses need to be based on scientific information, so we await that from the Institute of Communicable Diseases. But